the Divorced Girl Smiling Podcast with your host, Jackie Pilosoff.
No one should have to go through a divorce feeling alone and isolated. The Divorced Girl Smiling Podcast is a production of Divorced Girl Smiling, where every show is 30 minutes aimed to empower you, help you feel validated and understood, and connect you with some of the best divorce professionals in the industry. So grab a cup of coffee or a glass of wine and start smiling as you join us right now for the Divorced Girl Smiling Podcast. Heard everywhere podcasts can be found and always at divorcedgirlsmiling.com. Before we get started, I want to tell you about two Divorced Girl Smiling trusted professionals who I think are wonderful. The first one is divorce coach Karen Covey, and I have known Karen for several years and just think the world of her. She's a former practicing divorce attorney and mediator, and now she only coaches. And what's so nice about Karen is that she calls herself a divorce and decision-making coach. And divorce is such a hard process because sometimes you don't even know what to ask for, what your goals are. And that's where Karen can really help you develop a strategy to help you get the best possible divorce outcome. Can't say enough about her. If you want to learn more, go to KarenCovey.com. I also want to tell you about divorce attorney Colleen Breams. Colleen is a partner at Bierman, one of the best firms in Chicago. And Colleen is just, if I was getting divorced, I would hire Colleen in a minute. She can litigate, but she can also help you mediate your divorce. And Colleen's just full of energy, really positive, very smart. She's been practicing for many years. And she's truly committed to practical and creative solutions in the mediation and collaborative divorce processes. If you want to learn more about Colleen, you can find her on the Bierman website. You can also find both Colleen and Karen in the Trusted Professional section of Divorced Girl Smiling. When someone's going through a divorce, feeling like you're ever going to be happy again seems almost unimaginable. It's like you just can't even picture it. You're thinking like, how am I ever going to be happy again? There's a lot of women who say that to me. I don't even know what that looks like. And the reality, I believe, is that if you make good decisions during and after the divorce, and you have some faith and you have patience, you will be happy. But there's a lot of people who don't really know what happiness looks like after divorce. And that's what we're going to talk about today. I want to talk about 12 things that you don't need to be happy after divorce. My guest is Joanne Littman, and Joanne is a divorced mom, and she's also a financial advisor, has been for several years. She's a great financial advisor, by the way. And she works for Eagle Strategies. And hi, Joe.
Hi, Jackie. Thanks for having me.
Always nice to have you. And I'm really looking forward to this conversation. Joe, do you agree with me that when you're going through a divorce, you don't even know what being happy after looks like? You're like, well, what does that mean? I mean, am I ever going to be happy again?
I totally agree with you. It is really hard to see past what you're going through or have gone through or where you are in that moment to that next phase. It's very difficult.
So Joanne is the mom of 3 adult children, went
Yes.
through a divorce several years ago. So we definitely have both Joe and I have been through divorces, have had that feeling of like, I don't know if I'm ever going to be happy again. And I would say you and I are both really happy, Joe, right?
I feel like I'm a very happy person. I have a friend that calls me annoyingly positive. So I guess everybody's going to get a taste of that today.
Okay, so I was called nauseatingly positive.
Okay, look at that. But I
All
have to
right.
say, I struggled during my divorce. So I know what people are going through. It was really, really hard to feel that at the time.
For sure. Okay, so we're going to talk about 12 things that you don't need to be happy after divorce. And the first one is you don't need negative thoughts. And what I mean by negative thoughts are for example, I'm going to be alone forever. I don't like being a single mom. I can't believe I have to go back to work. There's no good guys out there. All these guys are losers. So, how do you handle going from those negative thoughts to having positivity?
I like to challenge myself and ask other people, like, what would you say to your sister or your daughter or your best friend or those? And we wouldn't say those same things to somebody else, but we somehow make it okay to say them to ourselves. So I try to flip that switch and be like, what would I tell the other person? And you'd be like, you will get through this. There's a great guy waiting for you if that's what you want. Like you would say something so much different to somebody else who you were supporting. And we have to do that for ourselves too.
I love it. And I also think you have to catch yourself. You have
Mhm.
to catch yourself and say to yourself, wait a minute. Let me just reframe that. It's
Right.
challenging to meet good guys, but there are good guys out there because I have friends who have met great guys online and they're happy.
I was gonna say borrow somebody else's story. Like, there's people that have gotten through what you've gotten through and have gotten to a better place. Jackie has, I have, right? And so like borrow other people's stories and be like, look, if they did it, I can do it too.
Absolutely. Okay, number 2, you don't need anxiety. Anxiety is so bad for your physical health and your emotional health. So, Joe, what are some ways that you manage anxiety that you think you can share with listeners?
Well, I first want to say that like this hasn't been a big struggle of mine. So for people that really I acknowledge and respect that this can be really difficult for people, and where people need professional support, they should be getting professional support. So my experience hasn't been in that place. So I certainly don't want to minimize, be like, just don't be anxious, I mean, because I know that it's bigger than that for a lot of people. I do think there's times that even me maybe fed into it more. I created more there than there had to be. And so for those times, I tried to kind of shake things up for me, like get out of whatever I was doing, go take a walk, call a friend, call my sister, do something, just get out of that place where I felt like all of a sudden I was anxious, but I wasn't in a clinically anxious place. And so I do want people to know, like, when you need help, you should get help.
Okay, well, I didn't know that about you, although I've never seen you even remotely having anxiety.
No,
I've
I don't
known
really
you
have
for
anxiety.
several years.
Yes.
I definitely have
Mm,
anxiety. It is in my family.
mm.
I have always had it. I never knew how to manage it. I still struggle with it. And I'm going to give a couple of tips for people going through divorce because that's when, if you are a person who has anxiety, it's really, really going to, or I should say, it could escalate. So, if you feel like you need anxiety meds, there is no shame in going to your doctor. My mom used to say it's like if you have a broken arm, you're not going to just say, "Oh, I don't need a cast. It'll heal by itself." So, sometimes medication is necessary. And if you're listening to this and you're one of those holistic people like Joe and I, um, you could do the meds and have holistic ways to deal with your anxiety and then eventually go off the meds. Or maybe you don't need meds at all. But I'm a huge fan of yoga. It has changed my life as far as my breathing and my anxiety. It's not just when you're in the class, it lasts all day and sometimes all week. I would also say talking to a therapist is a wonderful way to relieve anxiety, to get it out, to feel validated, to hear what you're actually saying to your therapist is very big. And then I would say, whenever you're feeling anxious, consciously shift your thoughts to gratitude. Like, for example, my kids like it better when they're at their dad's house. I can just feel it. I don't even know if they love me. Like, people get really insecure. I
Mm.
remember I used to be like, "Oh, they love him and his new wife, and, they're gonna just forget about me. They like being there better." Okay, I was so paranoid that wasn't true. But if you shift your thoughts and say, "Well, that's actually not true. My kids love me just as much, if not more. They're gonna come home on Sunday, and I get them for the whole week, and we're gonna plan lots of fun stuff," and just have faith in yourself.
I agree. I also, for somebody that hasn't had to manage anxiety, I do see the benefits of something like yoga too, though. And I think and it wasn't something I did for till recent years. And it's something that is really, really good for me as well.
Now, do you meditate? Because I just can't get into that,
Nope.
but I've heard that's like the best. You
No, me
don't?
neither. We're so similar. I can't. I don't do much meditation. I'm not a journaler. People always said like you have to journal, and I was like, I don't. I mean, it's just not for me. I think if it works for you, that's great. But I think that's part of the exploration that goes on is finding out what things do work for you, what things resonate with you. A lot of people are going to give people advice, right? And it's about try things, and if they work for you, great. Then that's meaningful to you, and if it doesn't, that's okay too. If you're not a yoga person, you're not a yoga person, but find those things that are going to help you.
Okay, so I just wanna say one more thing about meditation. I don't think you have to do conscious
Mm.
meditation exercises where you close your eyes, go in a room, and really, just make your mind blank, which is how I view meditation, which is hard for me. I think meditation can come in different forms. Like before we got on this podcast, Joe, I ran to take my dog out and I was like in a huge hurry. And I thought to myself, okay, let yourself for this 7 minutes look at nature and just
Mhm.
relax and don't think about work or anything. For 7 minutes, you are going to smell the beautiful flowers, look at your cute dog take a poop. Uh, um, like just look at beautiful flowers. There was a couple babies. I live by this pond with ducks. That to me is a form of meditation.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, I love to take walks. I'm the one, I touch all the plants as I walk by. Like has a really big impact on me too. I never thought about it that it's meditative, but whatever it is, it's calming for me, and it is a way to distract my mind from stressful things and to feel gratitude about the things around me.
And cooking is also meditative. When you're cooking, because I noticed this because I just started cooking. And by the way, myintuitivehealth.com and Hannah McKittrick taught me how to cook, taught me how to enjoy cooking and love cooking. And I wanna say that while you're cutting up those veggies, while you're smelling the food that you're cooking and the spices, that is meditative.
Yeah,
So
it's really
anyone who's going through a divorce, I'm serious. If you're stressed, even if you don't know how to cook, well, if you don't know how to cook, go to myintuitivehealth.com and join Hannah's Cook Club.
yeah,
But
Hannah's great.
and if but even if you're like, "I don't know how to deal with my anxiety," cook a meal. It will
Yep.
change your life. Okay, we are
Yes.
way past having to take a break. You're listening to the Divorced Girl Smiling podcast. My name is Jackie Pilosoff. I'm your host. I'm here today with Joanne Littman, financial advisor. Great financial advisor, by the way. No minimum amount required. Answers tons of questions about, decisions you might have to make during and after your divorce. And Joe, you're awesome. And if you want to
Oh,
reach Joe, you can find her in the trusted professional section of Divorced Girl Smiling. Joe and I are talking about 12 things that you don't need to be happy during and after divorce. We will be right back and wait till you hear the next one. It's so, so, so true. We'll be right back. One of the most stressful aspects of getting divorced is feeling like your spouse might be hiding money. And to hire a forensic accountant or to have your attorney do that can cost tens of thousands of dollars. And a lot of people either can't afford that or they don't think it's worth it because the cost might not outweigh the benefit. Well, guess what? The Divorce Money Guide has you covered. Developed by well-known forensic accountant Tracy Conan, the Divorce Money Guide is a tool to help you find out if your ex is hiding money and to get organized and to develop a strategy for your divorce. This is a 10-step handbook that walks you through what to do to find the money, and you walk away either with a complete sense of relief because you now know your ex is not hiding money, or you walk away with proof to give your attorney who can now take action to make sure that your divorce is fair and equitable. If you want to learn more about this wonderful tool, go to divorcemoneyguide.com. I also want to tell you about Holly Norman. Holly is a real estate agent in the Atlanta area and the suburbs. She's been a real estate agent since 2003, and Holly is also a certified divorce real estate expert, a CDRE. She's the founder of her practice, Chris Alex Real Estate Group, and she specializes in divorce, the luxury market, buying homes, selling homes. And Holly's just wonderful. Really trust her, and she really, really knows the market. If you want to learn more, go to chrisalexrealestate.com. And you can find both the Divorce Money Guide and Holly Norman in the Trusted Professional section of Divorced Girl Smiling. Welcome back to the Divorced Girl Smiling podcast. My name is Jackie Pilosoff, and I'm your host. Are you wondering how to be happy after divorce? That's what we're talking about today. My guest is Joanne Littman. Joanne is a financial advisor, but she's also a divorced mom of 3 adult children. Went through a divorce, and Jo's the best. Financial advisor, best person. Really, Jo, it's true.
Thank you, Jackie.
And we're going to move on to number 3, which you and I are both going to laugh because we've had this conversation before. You don't need a better body. What do you think?
I think if you want any changes for yourself, that's really meaningful. But if you think those changes are going to, change your life, bring you external, things that's the difference. Like, I mean, do it for you. If you want to do it for you, great, but that's kind of where it starts. You want to do it for you, for your health, for you to feel good, great. But if you think your body isn't worthy enough, I think that's where you and I have a problem with it. You're worthy in whatever shape and way you want to present yourself. So that's, you don't need one. You need what you want is what you need.
I couldn't agree more. I was talking to this woman yesterday who is getting divorced. She signed up for the Divorce Girl Smiling free consult, which you can find, by the way, on the website. And the woman said, I've really let myself go. And she was crying, and we talked about it. And I said, well, how do you feel? If you think your body is the way you want it, that's totally fine. In other words, just because you're divorced, you don't have to become anorexically thin and like, oh, I got to find somebody, so I got to lose 20 pounds. You do you.
Right.
And a better body, in my opinion, no matter what size you are, is eating lots of greens and whole grains and taking long walks, getting your heart rate up, going to the gym, doing yoga. Focus on health, and it will show up in your body.
I agree.
All right, number 4, you don't need a boyfriend or a second husband. Now, this is kind of controversial because everyone listening is going to be thinking, well, what do you mean? Do I have to be alone for the rest of my life? Absolutely not. But when I say you don't need it to be happy, I mean you don't need it in the first 10 minutes that you're divorced. And this is tricky because people inherently don't like to be alone. They want, they want to find love, and you definitely deserve that. But try to get to a point where you don't need it. Like, you have this great life, and then if you get a boyfriend or a second husband, it's like a bonus. They're adding to your great life. What do you think?
I think wanting one is perfectly fine. Boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever it is that you want, but needing one is where I think it's making that distinction of you don't need one. You can do everything you need to. You may want one, and that's okay when you're ready for companionship and a partner. Great, but you don't need one, and you don't need one even to be happy or feel fulfilled or all those kinds of things. You may enjoy life more if that's your lane, of having a partner, and cool, great. But you don't need one. You can do everything. You can have a fulfilled life. You can do all these things. I know people that flat out do not want another partner. They're done, and there's people that really, really do. They feel like it's just how they want to live their life is with somebody they care about. So whichever one it is right for you, but you don't need it. Wanting it is perfectly fine.
And I'll never forget this one girl. She was divorced, and this was like 15 years ago. And I said to her, like, what do you want now? Because she wasn't working at the time. She had one kid who was like in school most of the day. And I said, what are you going to do with your time? And she goes, "Well, I need a guy. I need to find somebody first and then I can figure that out." And I said to her, "No, reverse that."
Right.
And do you know, to this day, I think she's still single
Mm.
because her priorities are not like, you have to be happy with yourself and your life regardless of whether you have someone. And that's when you meet someone.
Right.
I've
I s-
always believed that.
yeah, I spent a lot of time really. I needed for me to really focus on this different life for my children that we were going to have. You know, they were 6, 9, and 11 when I got divorced, and different for me. And I needed to I had taken time off from the corporate world. If I knew a divorce was in my future, I might not have done that, you know, and I needed to kind of rebuild. I wasn't a financial advisor when I got divorced. It's since been 10 years, but I wasn't before. I needed to rebuild a lot of things, and I didn't. If it had happened, sure, you know, I was sort of open, but I wasn't really actively looking because I really needed to focus on some other things at that point, and I felt very comfortable with that. And my life was, you know, great during those years. So it's okay not to need one.
And it's a journey. The whole thing
Mhm.
is about the journey. So, okay, next one is that you don't need to be happy after divorce is you don't need to be what super wealthy. And a lot of women that I talk to are so worried that they're not going to be able to live that same life that they were when they were a married couple. And that's a huge reason a lot of people don't get divorced because they don't
True.
wanna give up their $3 million home and their lifestyle, and they're too afraid. Tell me about what I just said, you don't need to be really wealthy.
Look, I think that sometimes changes are necessary for you to feel secure and do the things you really want to do. I think prioritizing becomes what people need to figure out. What's the most important thing, right? Is travel really important, you know, or is the home you're living in, right? If you can't do both, what's the most, what are the things that are going to make your life most fulfilling? I think this is where maybe some help from either, you know, any of the many financial advisors that are on Jackie's, you know, trusted professionals page. If you're just unsure of how that's going to look for you, you might need some help in figuring that out so that you don't get into trouble later and you can happily, you know, fulfill your life with those things that you want, but really understanding what the impact is of making some of those decisions.
And having a financial plan done is very stressful because you have to see things that you don't really wanna see, and it's, like, scary and uncomfortable, and you might have to make some decisions that you didn't think you were gonna have to make, but in the end, if you're empowered and you know, then you just you can only go up, and it's the
Yeah.
best feeling because you really feel like you're so much more in control,
Yeah.
you know? Um,
But I see people with very different, you know, if you figure out when you look at the numbers, they're very different one that they thought they were going to be or that they lived their whole lives, and they can do everything that they want to do, and they don't need what they had before. And even when they think I don't know, they're really going to struggle when they sit down with somebody and write a plan, they're like, oh, okay, you know. And so, and you know what? And if things are difficult and more difficult than you ever thought they would be, you can find things that will give you a happy, fulfilled life that don't cost a lot of money. So it really isn't about the money when it's all said and done.
Well, I can't tell you the number of women, it must be thousands that in the 12 years I've had Divorce Girl Smiling, or 13 years, that I have talked to that were so scared to get out of their marriage, that moved into a smaller home, that budgeted, that went back to work, or just lived on a smaller budget. Not one of those women, I've never met one who said, "I wish I had the life I had when I was married and was
Right.
wealthier." Not
Right.
even one. There's not
Right.
I've never met one. Have you?
No, and I did that. Like I mentioned, I wasn't a financial advisor at the time. I was scared to death that how things were going to work out. I mean, I'm speaking from a very personal place about this. What you do and don't need. I cut every credit card that we had because the last thing I wanted to do was be in debt. Now I wouldn't necessarily say that that wasn't the greatest. You need one that you keep active, but okay. I cut all of mine. I figured if I didn't have the money, I didn't want to spend the money. I went like way off in one direction. Like okay, I'm going to be so careful. And you know what? You know, we still had things where there are things that were difficult during those times. Maybe did I have to say no to some things? Yeah, maybe. Did we travel lavishly? Oh no, we did not. You know, kind of thing. but I built my life back. And I really truly believe that you can you can get through the transition and you can build your life back to where I did it. If I can do it, anybody can do it. So it wasn't, I didn't have that kind of door. Sometimes people look from the outside to other people like, oh, they must have gotten a big settlement. Oh, they must be fine. Oh, they probably got the house. They probably got everything. That was not necessarily my situation. I had to rebuild everything and I rebuilt it. So I believe other people can rebuild it too. And you
I
need a
have
plan.
a
You need
very
a plan.
I have a very similar story. There was a time where I couldn't afford anything and I was very stressed financially and I wouldn't change anything and I built my life back and just worked and I don't remember being unhappy because I
I
didn't have
don't either.
money. Not even one time. I never said like, I wish, I drove a Mercedes. Never. There wasn't one time I can ever remember that I was upset because I was much happier being out of the marriage and not having the money versus being married, having a lot of money and not having the right marriage. All right, next one is you don't need guilt. So, Joe, do you talk to a lot of people who are getting divorced and they feel incredibly guilty like
Yeah.
I'm doing this to myself. I don't have
Mhm.
the right to feel sad because I wanted this.
Yes, I hear about it a lot, where they feel guilty about what the impact is to their children, or now my children have to go live in two houses, or whatever it might be. Yeah, I hear a lot about things like that. I think I struggled with it at the beginning of my own divorce as well. Especially about my children. Um, but this goes back to my first piece of advice, which is like, what would you tell your sister or your best friend, right? Like, I really do think we're so much harder on ourselves than we need to be. And so it goes back to like, going back to sometimes we have to remind ourselves, wait, how was it before? Why is it that I was getting a divorce? How bad was it for me? And maybe it wasn't your choice and you still feel guilty, because I think sometimes former partners have a way of making us feel like it was our fault. You weren't a good enough wife. You weren't, you nagged too much, weren't affectionate enough. You didn't do enough. You didn't whatever enough. I mean, and you know what? I tell people all the time, it's all garbage, right? Of course, people are going to say it's all your fault. Of course, they're going to because they can't face their own things. And you just really, somebody that's going to do that to you is not somebody who loves you and not somebody who you should give any ounce of credibility to. And just by them saying it alone, you'd be like, that wasn't the story, kind of thing. That
Okay,
wasn't really
wait, are
what
you
happened.
talking about when your ex says that to you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, because the next one is you don't need a toxic
There you
relationship with
go.
your
Right.
ex.
But I mean, if you're guilty about like the fact that a divorce happened and your ex has made you feel like it was you because of you, chances are that is not the whole story. I would hang my hat on that never being the whole story, and you just have to let it go and you have to look forward. The other thing is that, what does guilt do for anybody? It only weighs you down, and you just have to look forward and find ways to, have a fulfilled life.
Well, a lot of times when people get divorced and they're the ones who wanted the divorce, they have this incredible guilt because they see that their spouse either was shocked, didn't see it coming, even though the person might have been asking him to go to marriage counseling for 10
Mhm, mhm,
years.
mhm.
But then they start to feel guilty and the other person's like, please don't do this. And then you see the kids getting upset and then you have to sell the house and you're thinking, I did all this. And what I
Yeah.
want to say is guilt is a huge waste of an emotion. It serves no good purpose whatsoever. And turn that guilt into productivity. Say, what do I need to do to help my kids through this?
Right.
What do I need to make my ex understand why I left? Maybe it's a co-parenting um, session, a couple sessions with divorce coach Sherry Morris. She does like these co-parenting sessions. And by the way, deardivorcecoach.com is Sherry Morris. And all these people that we're talking about can be found in the trusted professional section of Divorce Girl Smiling if you want to learn more. But you could do like a co-parenting session. But my point is, like, take your feelings of guilt and say to yourself, this is not productive. What can I do to try to get rid of this guilt? How can I help? And sometimes there's nothing you can do. You had to get the divorce and time needs to go by, but you shouldn't feel guilty for wanting to be out of a toxic situation and having a better life.
I agree.
All right, now on to the toxic relationship with your ex. So I'm the queen of this, had a toxic relationship in those early years. And it was just it was something that prevented me from being happy because I would be so angry all the time or so resentful and bitter. And you just don't need that if you're going to be happy.
No, I think that, to engage as little as possible is always the best advice, right? And there's some great tools that you don't even have to do it live anymore, right? You can engage with each other, online, through an app and those kinds of things. I think that, yeah, as little as possible. I think that that toxic that toxicity is sometimes a tool. It's done to make you feel like that, right? That the toxic ex, whether it's ex-husband, ex-boss, ex whatever, right, is done to let those feelings linger. It's used as a weapon, is what I'm trying to say, against you. And when you realize that, that's when you're like, I want no part of this. And you just have to, I know when there's children, you sometimes can't completely disengage, but to disengage about anything other than the things you need to coordinate on the children is the best possible thing you can do.
Good advice. All right, we're running out of time, so I'm going to have to pick and choose here. You don't need everyone to think you're so happy. Did you
Yeah.
ever know somebody like that?
Yes. Yes. I think that people want to be like, well, they just don't want everybody to think that they struggle. And I think you just have to be, I'm all about authenticity. So be authentic. Obviously, you're not going to show up at a dinner party crying in the corner, kind of thing. But I think you also need to be honest with yourself as much as anything else. And that's okay. We're talking about all these reasons that not to be negative, but you know what? Sometimes, things are hard and it's okay to be, emotional and to be upset and to have your moments and those sorts of things. You have to be honest about those things. And it's okay. I don't think people expect us to be happy all the time, whether you're going through a divorce or anything else. So you can be honest.
Well, I think there's certain people who are going through a divorce that feel like they have to hide it and be fake in front of like all the other moms in the neighborhood. And the thing is, like Joe's right, you're not going to sit there and like cry all the time to them, but just know in your mind, you don't have to be fake. You don't have to say everything's awesome.
Right.
But just know in the back of your mind, who cares what they think because you're on your way to happiness.
Right.
So this isn't over yet. You might have be going through a divorce, but you have so much to look forward to. And in 5 years, they're going to be the ones getting
Oh
divorced.
no. Right.
You're going to
Well,
be
you make a
happy.
good point. When people say like, how are you doing? And you just want to break down in tears, you know what? You can be like, I am getting through it, and say it with like, positivity. You are empowered. You are getting through it. Maybe that's better to be like, oh, I'm great. Everything's fantastic. Because maybe it's not in that moment. So yeah, I'm
Love it.
getting through it.
All right, last one that we have time for. You don't need a million friends. This
Mm,
is a great way to close this podcast because,
mm.
Joe, how do you feel about that?
This is like my mantra, kind of thing. I always say I'd rather have 5 real friends than 500 quote unquote friends. I hold my friends very close. And I think you have to, have people that will support you, that will listen to you, that will say hard stuff to you when it's needed. But you don't need a million friends. You need true friends and true people in your life. And it's great to be social. If you have other people, friends of friends or social circles that are good for you, that's great. But find your true friends and stick with them.
Absolutely. And the reason I wanted to bring that up is because people listening, you might lose some friends in the
Mm,
divorce, and that's always really hard. And, people might not even want to be associated with you because you're getting divorced and they don't want to be divorced and they don't want you around their husband. They don't want
so
to
true.
touch what you have. And you might lose some friends. Totally okay.
It is.
Just it's hurtful. It's upsetting at first, but the good thing is it makes you realize those besties are the ones who will always be by your side, whether you're married, divorced, single, whatever you are. And that will mean the world to you.
I love it.
Joe, thank you so much for having this conversation. I absolutely loved it. I felt like we were nauseatingly, yeah, but I think that's a good thing.
Absolutely. I loved it too.
And if you want to learn more or talk to Joanne about your finances, you can reach her in the trusted professional section of Divorced Girl Smiling. Just go to financial advisors. And to everybody listening, if you want to listen to more podcasts or read articles or sign up for my free consult or find more trusted, vetted divorce professionals, come see me at divorcedgirlsmiling.com. Thanks so much for listening.